As we were introducing ourselves, you could have seen our smiling faces in two different places, and that's us. If you want to follow us on LinkedIn, there are our profiles. And so when we talk about brands walking the walk, what do we mean? So really from the advent of consumerism, product performance and the brand experience needed to match the claims that were made in advertising. It's the kind of crux of the old saying, there's no better way to kill a bad product than with good advertising, really. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're really talking about the marketing itself as a behavior, because really that's the opportunity, that's the enablement that the digital age brings to brands. The fundamental question for us in terms of our approach as an agency is, what does every brand want? And every brand wants stronger, more profitable relationships with their customers. And marketers spend billions and billions of dollars a year to try to get the one thing that ultimately enables relationships, which is trust. Unfortunately for marketers, trust is not something that you can tell people to do. You can't tell people to trust me. You have to earn trust, as we all as marketers know and understand. But currently, there's a bit of a crisis of trust in the marketing realm. According to a number of studies, this one in particular from the Alterian Group, only 5% of people trusted advertising, and a little bit more than that, 8% trust kind of what the company says about itself.
Yeah, and that might be, I think a big part of it is, as digital has come into everything, it's turned practically everything into a channel. A way you can add a message to practically anything at practically any moment. And so now as brands are having so many more contact points, it's just multiplying the times that you can either do something trustworthy, say something meaningful or not. And so, back in the day when it was just, I'm saying this and I'm only going to have one or two touch points with you a year. Here's my new campaign and here's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's one gate to get through, but now you have to get through dozens and dozens and dozens of gate on a really, ever increasing pace. So you're put into that filter, and you're judged that way. Every single day now.
Yeah. Certain industries are having an even harder time than others. I know this might be a little bit hard to read in terms of the detail, but not surprising. At the kind of bottom end of the industries that are trusted, you look at banks and financial institutions, and you look at the media. But interestingly, the industries that are having the lesser of the hard time is technology. So how do we as marketers use that as a way to create closer bonds with our customers? And more so to that, there is hope. When you look at the trends, especially over the past couple of years in online sources of information, and especially in social media, there's a lot more trust. This piece of information is one of many we use, but this is a Edelman Trust Barometer that really shows dramatic gains, especially in social media, in terms of people trusting the source. And really, our hypothesis here is based on, social media has matured. People have their networks. Really, the whole basis of a social network is these are people that you trust. So when somebody in your social network or a brand you follow in your social network says, check this out, this is cool, this phone is great, whatever the claim, you're much more likely to check that out, because these are people or brands or entities that you've kind of pre-established a higher level of trust with.
Yeah, we also kind of typically have a basic philosophy that the strongest relationships are the ones you choose to make.
Yeah.
And that, in that social environment, the consumer has much more control anyway. They really are making all the choices. And so it's more of a one-to-one relationship in any type of relationship. And so you can kind of see how that kind of control, that kind of place in the relationship would lead to more trust naturally.
Yeah. And really it comes down to, digital's ability to create kind of rich, customized experiences versus a traditional advertising approach, which is a bit more storytelling. I'm standing on a stage preaching out a message. So you can understand why people would trust a brand that goes a little further to create something that is rich and customized to their customers. So the centralizing question then is, how do marketers build that trust with today's consumer? Is it, the notion of, standing on a stage and broadcasting and preaching, or is it kind of finding shared values, shared interests, and really creating engagement? You might expect the answer to be the latter, but our point of view is it's not an or, but it's an and that every marketer really should look at a combination of the kind of brand-centric storytelling, really talking about the brand beliefs and doing that position setting activity, and then complementing that with the kind of engaging, more behavioral thing that we're talking about today. And really, this is kind of the crux of what we mean by when we say talking the talk and walking the walk. It's that perfect hybrid of the brand beliefs, the advertising, the outbound kind of one-way communications, with the kind of how does the brand behave in digital marketing and in marketing in general.
And both are equally important. You have to stand for something as much as you ever had to do. And sometimes, especially when we get into deeper social spaces and the idea of code-generating stories, and that, there's a fine line between following the consumer and then just getting lost together too. Yeah. Everybody appreciates, what you stand for, and that's going to guide all your decisions on what you do.
Yeah. So now we kind of jump into the more granular point of view around, the power of digital to really engage. And, engagement's one of those words that has really been used a lot over the past several years. But in our view, it really is just another way of saying, how does the brand behave and how does it interact with the people you want to do business with? Interestingly, the digital space was kind of originally coined as interactive, and there's actually a good reason for that, because you actually interact with things as opposed to kind of passively, consume. And the really good marketers have realized that the digital channel is not just another one-way communications channel. Of course, the bad marketers just use it as another channel to throw video into or to blast out messages. But again, the good ones really understand that it is a way to engage and to create rich experiences that kind of combine the brand's story with things that the consumer actually cares about. And many studies, this is just one of them, actually show a lot higher purchase intent when people engage with interactive advertising versus static. You can see that on this one specifically, static versus interactive ads. There's a huge difference in the means between the two in purchase intent. So core to our approach is really getting to what we call the engagement strategy. It's looking at the brand's mission, which is really the story the brand wants to tell. Why does the brand exist? And then we look at what story the consumer wants to engage with. What in their lives is so important to them that the brand could add value to could create some usefulness there versus just kind of a static advertising message. So instead of talking a lot more theory, we figured we'd show some examples that our agency has actually done to kind of bring this philosophy to life and some of the results so far.
Well, we're going to go ahead and we'll start with talking about Michelob Ultra then. And this idea of the engagement strategy, that's the key to everything. How are you going to dance? What role do you play as a brand? And then what role do you want the consumer to play? And how's that going to be equitable? So following up on what Milan had just talked about with in our little Venn diagram here, in coming to the Ultra Life, we knew that for anyone who knows a little bit about the beer, it's a beer that, really allows you to kind of have a balance in your life. You get to go out and have a very active lifestyle, but you can also celebrate, and it's not going to hold you down. And it's fortunate to be a beer really with kind of a mission and a really a dedicated kind of audience. So for us, the role that we play is, as a brand, the brand is the champion of the Ultra Life and the Ultra experiences, and it allows the consumer to be the achiever. And with that basic dynamic, we can start to build an experience around it. So you can sum it up as the engagement strategy in a shorthand was to inspire, elevate, and celebrate your extraordinary life. And that's going to guide all the decisions we make. The one piece, it's kind of a large piece that we're going to show you is a platform that we just launched for Ultra, which essentially right now is the website, and we're going to show you all the components of it. But then we'll also show you how it's really a platform that goes beyond just the desktop website and what it'll allow us to do with the brand. So if you look, we say it standing at the trailhead. I mean, you kind of see this is the homepage for the site. And what we've done is we've taken a lot of content that they are already producing. There's so many different agencies that work together to create experiences for Ultra, but they needed to take all these threads and weave them together into a little bit more of a fabric. And I'll tour you through the different parts of the site, and you can see how they all play back to elevate, inspire, elevate, and celebrate, if you just go on here. And I'm moving very quickly because I recognize we have a short amount of time, so I apologize for my high-speed tour here. But we start with just even the navigation, and we're saying think like an app. You know, it was a very big decision. Had a whole meeting, you know, really dedicated to saying we need to move this into an active voice because this is an active brand, and if we want to behave, if we want to walk the walk and talk the talk, we need to frame everything that way. So train, live, and plan are interesting ways of putting you know, events and you know, articles, you know, about your life, or articles that can help you or any kind of content really that can help you lead this Ultra life and maybe kind of get deeper into the sports. But being in that active voice was kind of a fundamental paradigm shift, and it was important. And again, it's a choice that we were able to make because we knew where we were going with the roles we wanted to play. Moving from there, that allowed us to kind of create this lower strip on the platform on the site. One is train and one is live, and it allows us to just kind of again, you know, separate out the parts of your life and inspire you in different ways. So it's not just a jumble of different content that you can understand the intent of the brand and how we'd like to work with you and how we would like to have a relationship with you. For the user, they're not thinking about all these things. They're just getting kind of a nice organized sense to go, oh wow, they're really giving me a lot to work with here. They can feel inspired. And then as you dive down into the articles, you know, I mean, we have just a nice way of putting it all together where you can kind of scan over. It's very easy to roll over, or if you're on an iPad, you can just kind of click on any one of the thumbnails and it tells you what the article's all about. And then it starts clustering content around, you know, relative to each other. So there's more training articles. There's these things called challenges that I'll talk to you about in just a bit. And then there's also tips and other types of things. But we want to just make the experience to be very easy to go in and feel inspired and just move from one thing to the next very easily. And this is just an instance of kind of going into an article, and you can see how there's related content. So, you know, just trying to make a very nice, easy flow here for folks. This idea, you know, is to add a layer that didn't exist before, and that was this notion of challenges. And you know, we have a really, really fantastic client. I have to say, I don't know if he's logged on or anything, but really great client and a great working relationship here, who'd been buzzing in our ears for a long time of wanting to connect with people through these challenges as an active brand, and what could we do in that space. And that's a rising meme. That's something that you kind of see with Livestrong, or you might see in active.com, or a lot of different places. But no one really kind of had taken it to the level of owning it from a brand point of view. So that's all we tried to do. Is we have a very specific engagement strategy of creating challenges around the major sports that Ultra has, which are running, golfing, and biking. And doing interesting things, some named at the off season when it's kind of the winter time. Like this one is the 18 below 32 challenge that was put out last month to try and get golfers to get around in, whether it's a virtual round or a 365 day a year course that you go out and find, and almost every city has one. But it's a very social thing. It allows you to post it to your Facebook wall or challenge friends. And, you know, this was something, again, that you can feel confident for your brand to go to this place because it plays into the engagement strategy. It is inspiring. And then you can see we create a little universe of these things that isn't too big but isn't too small, that allows us to move into a lot of spaces and keep challenging that Ultra spirit. And then just an instance of, it going out to the wall and starting to get this vibe going that here's a brand that engages with people this way. And again, consumers don't think of it that way. They just kind of, appreciate what the brand is doing. And then also, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but we bring the whole thing into, a CRM play, essentially, by letting people, now we've provided value, signing up and showing us your preferences, gets to be a natural part about it. We can just serve you better. And it's, even that is framed less of, give us your information and we'll give you stuff, and more like, tell yourself what you want here and see more of it. And this is just more opportunities to kind of say, now we've woven it into the whole lifestyle, and you can find establishments around or near you that serve Ultra, and it tells you just different parts of how to get into your life and relax and be social and celebrate as well. And then the last thing here is just, again, to bring it back to this point, it wasn't just about creating a website. We know that, this particular consumer, it's a perfect match, and they really, to want to need to really engage properly with these consumers, it's going to be a little bit different in every circumstance. Every platform is not just a platform, but a whole different need state. And so when you do this, there's a rising thing that you'll hear about called responsive design, where you design it to automatically shape itself to fit different devices. And that shaping is not just necessarily, changing the layout a little bit, but actually changing the priority of the content and serving up different things to match the different kind of places or need states that people are in. And again, you'd be lost at sea if you didn't have a good engagement strategy. And we really tip our hats to Michelob Ultra and the whole team there for developing that with us. And if you didn't have that, you really wouldn't know where to make your choices and whether you were on track or not.
So very quickly then, turning to another case study, Lenovo. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Lenovo is a Chinese PC maker that bought IBM ThinkPad several years back and has made some big plays to be a global player in the PC space. And ultimately, they went through a bit of a self-discovery, and they said that, we're not one of those brands like Microsoft that is about potential or passion, and we're about people that get stuff done. We're about doers. So they ultimately established a brand campaign, as they call it, Lenovo, for those who do. And they have an advertising agency that does some really wonderful high-level advertising, television and print, that tells a wonderful story. And they came to us really with the ask of, how do we bring that to life for people? How do we make that more real? How do we create an engagement? So to the engagement construct, the story that they really wanted to tell is that they are they make do machines, as they call them. They make the tools, and the doers make them do. So ultimately, it's about the tool maker versus the doer, and our engagement strategy was really to ignite the spirit of the doer and actually helping them turn ideas into action, real action, which got us to this core idea, this core platform we call the Do Network.
Yeah, I think it's important actually on this slide to think about the tool maker thing, because that's a real shift when you look at the brand and when it came to us. I mean, saying we make do machines, which is smart, right? That's a really good way of thinking about it. But if you know technology, it kind of gets you in this place where you might just go right into the specs right off. You might just say, well, here's why it's so pumped up. But really thinking as a tool maker and framing up each computer as being kind of a different knife in the drawer, and understanding that what we're really doing is creating the pieces you need to do, changes the way you're going to build things and approach things. So if you go on to how we got to the Do Network, we realized that to do this promotion in a way that, it's a contest that throws out challenges and invites people to meet these challenges and learn about Lenovo along the way. But to really make it a more branded effort, we realized that if we made the whole platform here more of a tool in and of itself that allowed you to, explore the different tools, that's that's what the Do spirit is all about. And so we created the Do Network, and it allowed us to make some really important choices. There are mentors here to guide you, so we're serious about supporting doers by making that choice. We allow people, it's truly a social network, so people can work together on projects. So when you build a project and build a profile, say, here's what I need to get this done. And when you build a profile, you say, here's what my skills are. And it helps matchmake. It helps like-minded people find like-minded people. And so, again, we're not just selling products and saying, here's what our products do, wouldn't you like it? We're creating situations where like-minded people can work together and kind of kindle that Do spirit. And then as we're providing the experience and showing our computers and talking about our computers as Do machines, as tools to help you get done along the way, now we've framed up everything in a very, very active sense, and in a great sense that we are going to always support you and support your Do spirit, essentially.
Yeah, and talk about wanting to establish trust and a relationship with people. I mean, this is a brand that said, if you have an idea, come tell us what your idea is, and if you follow the gauntlet, and if enough people vote on your idea, and you get the right inputs, then we'll give you the money, and we'll give you the support and the tools and the guidance to actually bring it to life. And in describing it a little bit more, and actually to answer Roseanne's question, we've kind of set a roadmap of this particular program as a three-year roadmap, which every 90 days there's a new kind of theme that guides the idea submissions. And we think that because the way we've built this with multiple themes, from invention to exploration to creativity and expression, ultimately it really allows us to cast a wide net of a lot of different kinds of people that would want to engage here, but also gives it a really long runway. Whereas in digital's earlier days, they were demand generation campaigns that would last 60 or 100 days. We think this has got a lot of legs to it, and if you do it right, and if you think about it from the get-go, you can create programs that go for years and years and years if you're updating them, and if they're really that engaging, where there's the value to come back time and time again. So with this, we've launched in Europe and Asia, and to that we've done a lot of traditional advertising to drive to it. There's print advertising. There's online advertising, there's out-of-home advertising, and then there's the whole bevy of influencer outreach that we've done. We've done campus canvassing, local, because the first theme was actually invention. So, we went to, in India, Indonesia, and Russia, for example, we went into technical colleges to really get students excited about this, to complement a lot of the traditional advertising to drive to the program. Then when we launched, the site continually updates. When the site officially kicks off, it's 90 days to invent a better tomorrow, and ultimately drives provocative interest in each one of the potential challenges. We've just come out of a top 10 stage where each country then shows the top 10 winners based on the mentors choosing based on social votes, based on them having hit a number of these milestones that we've put into the program, and then ultimately we recently just awarded winners for our first cycle, which is really wonderful and interesting. And then if you think about, again, back to Roseanne's question, what this ultimately creates is a self-building content and community. So if you think about I'll talk about the results in a minute, the thousands of entries that were into this, and certainly when you get down to the top 10, really rich, interesting content that then become the magnets to attract more and more people into it, for future cycles.
And when you take the big view and then look in, all of this really plays right into for those who do. It's all about doing and achieving and giving the people the means to do it. So again, this is exactly where we're talking about the brand walking the walk and talking the talk. I mean, if you say for those who do, and that's just a message and it's not backed up and you're not living it, the brain might accept it, but it doesn't take it for something authentic and trustworthy. Here, we spent a lot of time and made a lot of choices. Every choice that you look at, if you would pour through that site, comes back to the brand's intent and how we want to dance.
Yeah. So from bottom up, we really had no idea what to expect because this is a fairly innovative new kind of project. But we got 2,200 projects created. So you can imagine the content that was created there in really rich video and pictures and ideas. In the final voting, there was over 250,000 votes cast, 147,000 registered users, which, if you look at that, that's 147,000 people that you can then remarket to in the right way to continue to engage them, well beyond the 90-day cycle. There was, 4.5 million page views. There was 150 million impressions. So, just in a 90-day period with a fairly modest media investment, we got pretty terrific results, and we expect that, for every 90-day cycle we do, these numbers to continually grow as the program gets more and more noticed. And then really to sum it up is, kind of rules of engagement, some of the things that we kind of hold near and dear. The most fundamental piece of this, even before getting to an engagement strategy, is your brand's mission clearly articulated? Why does your brand exist? And why would anybody really care? There's this notion of authentic that is really absolutely critical to anything you do. People can sense disingenuous behavior. They can sense advertising messagey type things. So be authentic. Be authentic to your brand. Be authentic to the people that follow your brand. That follow your brand. Obviously, as this, the Do Network is, and as the Ultra platform is, the experience has to be valuable to your consumers, yes, but it also has to be valuable to your business. And the investment you make, can you see both in hard and soft terms the value on your business? The hard terms of is it driving sales? Is it driving clicks? And is it driving time on site and all of those things? But even the more brand-centric things. Is it driving consideration? Is it driving purchase intent? And all those things that every good marketer should be measuring as a part of each program. Build the program to fit into people's lives, connecting the brand mission to their aspirations. Be willing to kind of embrace the open-ended nature of it. If you can imagine, with the Lenovo case study in particular, there's a lot of unpredictableness to it in terms of the kind of projects that are going to get submitted and the kind of comments. And you need to be prepared for a bit of the unpredictability of it and have a response plan for the kind of content that you do get submitted. And finally, just on a practical note, it's you need a certain degree of confidence that people will actually do this. There's a lot that the digital age promises to do in terms of bright, shiny object. It's like, can it be done? Yeah, I guess it can be, but are people really going to care? Are they going to take time out of their day to do this? Is there enough value in this program for people to do it, for them to put their stamp on it and share it with their social networks on and offline? And with that, we kind of get into our Q&A. Any initial questions? And Roseanne, if there was any more to your question, let us know.
We have some that we can scroll back to as well.
No, we got them. So we've got a question.
Haven't done this before, so
yeah. So we got a question from somebody around how important is identity design in the brand mix of the project, and really kind of part and parcel with establishing the brand mission and establishing the voice of the brand, what the brand would do, in terms of personifying it. Who is this brand? How does it look? How does it act? That. The identity design is a really important piece of it, because without that, then you're not fully set up to dive into how does it behave, how does the brand behave. Ultimately, you got to find out kind of what the person looks like and believes and sounds like before you can kind of talk about what they would do in particular situations.
Yeah, and that also depends on where you're actually picking up this brand, if you're creating the design or whether you're inheriting the design. Because, the most important thing is for the brand to be very comfortable in its skin. and that you're, again, it's back to the authentic nature of it. So if there is a mismatch going on there, I think you need to just address it. You need to kind of find a way to make it fit. And maybe that's de-emphasizing it. Maybe that's bringing new meaning to it. But it's ultimately has the power to be one of the most consumer facing pieces of evidence that you do mean what you say and say what you do, and your intent is clear, and you're inviting and an engaging type of brand.
I've got another question. How can I make sure my brand is walking the walk and talking the talk in all landscapes? And it's a good question, because really, the best client organizations are the ones that are not siloed. So, as many of you observe firsthand, because you're in a marketing organization, or you're an agency that works with clients. The biggest challenge in making sure that the walk and the talk are the same is when there's the advertising people, and then there's the digital people, and then there's the web people, and there's the social media people, and oftentimes the multiple hands are not talking to themselves. So certainly easier said than done, but we've got a number of clients who organize themselves really with pure brand managers, somebody that really owns the brand. And really can pull the levers through their organization, in each one of the right pieces of media, each one of the right channels, to make sure that remember back in the day, integration meant that your print ad looked like your direct mail piece that kind of looked like your TV spot. Well, today, as we all know, integration is is each channel being used for what it should be used for. TV is a great channel for kind of broad scale awareness and storytelling. Social is a great channel for interaction and kind of addressing issues and engaging, and so on and so on and so forth. So you got to have somebody at the wheel. You got to have one person at the wheel who really understands what messages, what actions, what behaviors are being put into each channel to make sure that there's a holistic picture of it.
Yeah, I would also add to that really the first step in your brand engagement strategy is truly knowing your brand's central truth, the brand that you're working on, the brand's essence. If you know that central truth, and everybody agrees, and everybody knows this is where we're after, that is the beginning of everything. That's the beginning of your roadmap. And so then when you build your engagement strategy, well, if this is our truth, and then the relationship between our consumers and our brand is like this. And then that's how you get into the role of the brand. We're the champions. And the role of the consumer, they're the achievers. And then once you have that, that's when you can kind of confidently, it starts to make your roadmap. You know what you want to do, you've articulated it, and then moving between media or between, distribution channels is a lot easier to be out there on that channel and say, well, are we living up to this? Are we doing this? Because in that moment, if you are, you've got your blueprint where it's all going to add together. If you're kind of adrift and you haven't answered those questions in the first place, you can find yourself way out in some new piece, trying some new technology, or just having a little voice growing that just starts to, get off your plan and off your map.
So Abby asks, can you share some of the process for how you determine and or decide on the engagement strategy? And it's a good question. At the core of it, it does go back to establishing that brand mission. And it's almost a little bit of an old school personification exercise. If your brand was a person and your consumer was a person, how does that brand interact in a way that is bringing the mission to life in a way that is really valuable for somebody, that in a way that somebody would care, and in a way that somebody would want to have a relationship with you. Every brand has a platform. Some brands, music is their platform. You got Red Bull, where you look at extreme sports, and there's that kind of like shared interest kind of thing. And Red Bull says, we're going to bring you this amazing content. And you're going to participate in it, and if you look at the PepsiCos of the world, where it's music, and we're going to bring you music, and ultimately it's about identifying that middle point of really what the brand wants to bring and what the brand stands for in the context of what anybody would care about, and is it interesting, is it valuable, is it useful for people, and then the next step is, all right, so then what are the granular tactics of the program that would bring that to life?
Yeah, I like to also think of it, not everybody agrees with this little metaphor, I'm a man of many metaphors, but I will say I like to look at it as a dance. Because if you know your brand, and if your brand likes to jitterbug and that's it, your brand has crazy energy and that's the pace and that's the kind of, then you have to find, what consumers are going to want to do that and how you're going to dance, because a dance goes on and it moves, and then sometimes you lead and sometimes you follow, but you stay together. And you kind of move that way. And when you think of it that way, you start to kind of go, then it starts informing a lot of things. It informs maybe the frequency and the cadence of how you're going to communicate with people, or it might, or just the tone of it. So, getting to that point of what role do I play or my brand play, and what role will the consumer play, is fundamental.
So we got another question. What's your perspective on sponsorships in regards to brand engagement? Are they valuable? And some are, some aren't, I guess, is the easy answer to that. But I think that sponsorships are a great way to connect with people if done right, to identify some people that have a shared set of values, and ultimately all kind of come together under a common passion. I think sponsorships in terms of creating real rich engagement in the context of them, and using the sponsorship as a way to get to the right people is great. Sponsorships in the old school notion of brought to you by is a bit of a cheat these days, and frankly, if you're talking about big scalable sponsorships, you're paying a lot for them. So if you're negotiating sponsorships either on behalf of your client or if you are the marketer, you need to make sure that you're negotiating to get really a lot of value out of it, a lot of rich engagement and access to to the people that are kind of part of that community of sponsors.
I think that consumers also, they kind of intuitively pick up energy and intent. And you'll see it. You'll see if a brand does something and you follow on social media, all the comments, they're doing this because of this, they're doing this because of that. The mind is wired to try and discover the intent behind something. And they can also kind of just feel like that's a very, very positive thing, or that's a very selfish thing, or that's a very, smart thing. And I think it's really aligning the energy and the intent of your partners and of your sponsors. You can have a very successful program where it's just a nice relationship that brings more scale to things. But I think the more that when you get to the heart of it and it seems in tune, the more authentic it will be, and the more people will respond, if they share those values as well.
Yeah.
What else we got?
That was it. Anything else? We got one just came through. How have you seen marketers best organize themselves to execute against the beliefs plus behaviors model? And it really goes back to what we were just talking about in the sense of the siloed functions of the advertising people, the digital people, the direct mail people, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And really, if you can identify somebody that is really driving the ship, captaining the ship, and has a view to, yes, I need to use certain channels to communicate what we believe, and I'm going to then use these channels to communicate what how we're going to behave, because especially when you get into those siloed organizations, the challenge that you have is even worse than the right hand not talking to the left hand in terms of the product performance and the advertising is, if the advertising isn't matching up to the way the brand is behaving online, there's just a strange disconnect. And in the article of the in the link that we have up on the screen there, we make an analogy to people that say one thing and do another, people that you probably really wouldn't want to have a relationship with, because it's hard to trust those kind of people. So the same thing applies. If the brand is saying one thing and acting in another way, you have a real opportunity to alienate a lot of the people that otherwise could be strong advocates for your brand and customers.
I think also, there are times where you have to look at, on a big level, especially in bigger companies, sometimes the decision-making process is what it is, and it forces a certain kind of cadence. And I mean, it starts with the recognition that, hey, wait a second, there's a cadence to life that doesn't necessarily go to, the 4 fiscal quarters or however you're going to do it. And just starting with that acknowledgement that again, back to the dance, the rhythm that we have to establish to, really have a proper, relationship the way we want to have with our consumers might be funky against normal decision-making processes, that have traditionally been there. And you just have to be able to adjust and talk about that and look at it, in a different kind of timeline sometimes, to give yourself the freedom to be able to make those kind of choices and be more dynamic and more fluid with the kind of relationship that you're going to have.
Yep. All right. So if there are no more questions,
You can always email us, or there's many ways to follow up, and be happy to answer more questions.
All right, everybody. Thanks very much. It was fun doing this. Bye-bye.
Take care.